What if the Queen of Soul died carrying the most painful family secrets? Secrets she never allowed the world to know, not even her closest friends. Aretha Franklin could silence a stadium with a single note. Her voice became a national treasure, her music, an anthem of empowerment, resistance, heartbreak, and survival. Yet for all the public power she wielded, behind closed doors, she lived a life built on silence, shame, and unspeakable wounds. Before she passed in 2018, Aretha left behind not just a musical legacy, but a chaotic family battlefield. Handwritten wills hidden in couch cushions, feuding sons, unacknowledged paternity claims, and stories that never made it into her carefully curated interviews. And when one of those wills suggested the unimaginable, that her own father may have played a darker role in her early life, those who revered her were left speechless. She had her first child at 12, another at 14. She married an abusive man in her teens. She never publicly named the father of her firstborn. She refused to speak of her childhood. When journalists pushed, Aretha would shut the conversation down or walk away entirely. It was as if her story had been split in two, the voice the world heard and the silence she guarded like a vault. But vaults don't stay locked forever. This is the other side of the crown. The side no tribute concert dares to touch. The pain behind the voice, the woman behind the myth, the truth behind the Queen of Soul. And once you hear it, you can never unhear it. Detroit, Michigan, a city of industry, gospel, jazz, and resilience. It was here, in the smoky, segregated America of the 1940s and 50s, that Aretha Louise Franklin was born into a household bursting with both glory and contradiction. Her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, wasn't just a preacher. He was a phenomenon. His sermons were recorded and distributed like records. His booming voice filled churches from Mississippi to Michigan, and his home was a revolving door for gospel royalty and civil rights icons. Mahalia Jackson, Martin Luther King Jr., Sam Cooke, they didn't just visit, they stayed, they prayed, they sang. And young Aretha absorbed it all. But behind the pulpit's glamour, there was darkness. Rumors swirled around the Reverend about his affairs, his parties, his late-night guests. Some whispered of underage girls. Others claimed he fathered children with members of his congregation. The Franklin home, while filled with music and God's word, was also a place where boundaries were often blurred, where a young girl's innocence could be quietly taken and no one would speak of it. By the time Aretha was 10, her mother had left. Not divorced, not separated. Simply vanished from Aretha's daily life, leaving the children with C.L. Franklin and his unpredictable, deeply spiritual, but morally ambivalent world. 2 years later, Aretha was pregnant, and no one, to this day, has definitively answered how or by whom. While Detroit shaped her musically, it also forged in her a deep sense of secrecy, of needing to control her own narrative. Music became her armor, her escape. The piano replaced the therapist's couch. Her voice replaced confession, and the stage became the only place she was ever truly free. But even on stage, she was guarded. She refused to rehearse with orchestras. She avoided talk shows. She canceled concerts at the last minute. It wasn't diva behavior. It was defense. Aretha had survived something she never wanted to name, and that silence became her survival mechanism. By the time she hit her 20s, Aretha Franklin had already lived a lifetime of loss, trauma, and unspoken pain. But the world only saw the triumph, the electric performances, the Grammy Awards, the civil rights rallies, the chart-topping hits. No one asked what it cost her to become the Queen of Soul, and she never volunteered the answer. The theme of her life wasn't just survival, it was concealment. And that concealment of her past, of her family wounds, of her greatest personal agonies, would come to define not just her public persona, but the legacy she tried so hard to protect, even in death. Because behind every legend, there's a truth they never wanted told. It began with gospel. At just 14 years old, Aretha Franklin released her first album, Songs of Faith, recorded live at her father's church. Even then, her voice didn't just carry melody, it carried pain, power, and prophecy. She wasn't merely singing about salvation. She was begging for her own, but few noticed. To most, she was the prodigy daughter of Reverend C.L. Franklin, a child blessed by both God and DNA. Yet beneath the hymns was a girl who had already become a mother, twice. Aretha gave birth to her first son, Clarence, when she was 12. 2 years later, she had another son, Edward. The fathers were never publicly identified, and Aretha never spoke of it, not in interviews, not in books, not even in the documentaries made long after her death. But the speculation never stopped. Some fingers pointed inward, to the very house she grew up in. A silence that loud always invites echoes. By 18, Aretha left gospel behind for good and set her sights on secular stardom. Signing with Columbia Records, she recorded jazz and pop standards, polished, respectable, safe. But the sound wasn't hers. It was what executives thought a respectable black woman should sing. Despite her unmatched vocal power, Aretha spent years in artistic limbo, failing to chart major hits. Columbia molded her image, but not her soul. Everything changed when she signed with Atlantic Records in 1966. Producer Jerry Wexler let her loose, let her play piano, choose her songs, define her sound, and what emerged was raw, unapologetic, transcendent. Within months, she recorded I Never Loved a Man, The Way I Love You, and then Respect, the anthem that would redefine gender, race, and soul music itself. Respect wasn't just a hit, it was a declaration, a demand, a battle cry. Black women across America finally had a voice that thundered for them, and Aretha became an icon. In the late 1960s, she couldn't miss Chain of Fools, Think, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. Every track was a sermon, every performance a reckoning. But while her music soared, her personal life descended into chaos. Her first marriage to Ted White was unraveling. He was abusive, controlling, and reportedly exploited her finances. Those close to her claimed he would berate her backstage, threaten band members, and at times physically harm her. But Aretha, ever private, brushed it off as passionate disagreements. Her silence, again, was armor. As fame grew, so did her pressure. Aretha was now the breadwinner for an entire ecosystem. Children, siblings, cousins, managers, entourage. Everyone expected her to be on all the time. And when she wasn't, the cracks showed. She would disappear for days before concerts. Cancel entire tours at the last minute, binge on food and alcohol, lock herself in hotel rooms for days. At her lowest, friends feared she was spiraling toward the same fate as Billie Holiday, consumed by demons, abandoned by the industry she carried. But Aretha refused to fall publicly. She remarried, this time to actor Glynn Turman, and tried to stabilize. For a time, she did. Her role in the Blues Brothers introduced her to a younger generation. She won award after award, from Grammys to Presidential Medals of Freedom. She sang at Obama's inauguration. She became untouchable, a national monument. But privately, the storms never truly passed. Her son Clarence, named after her father, struggled with mental illness. Her half-sister died tragically. Her relationship with her siblings became tense, especially over money and control. Aretha, fiercely protective of her independence, began keeping everyone at arm's length. She had risen to the top of the world, but built her throne on silence. Every note she sang was a cry, every ovation a distraction. And the higher she climbed, the further she had to fall. In 2018, as Aretha Franklin lay dying from pancreatic cancer in her Detroit home, the world mourned a queen. But behind the solemn tributes, a storm was already forming, one that would unravel everything she had spent her life trying to keep hidden. No sooner had the news of her death settled than whispers began. Not about her discography, not about her voice, but about her legacy and what she left behind. Or rather, what she hadn't. Aretha Franklin had died without a formal, notarized will, or so everyone thought. Then, months later, a member of her family made a discovery that would ignite one of the most shocking legal battles in modern music history. Tucked inside a spiral notebook, wedged between the cushions of her living room sofa, was a handwritten document. Scrawled, messy, emotionally raw. A second, even more chaotic version was later found in a locked cabinet. Both claimed to be her last will and testament. Both contradicted each other, and everything her longtime lawyers had prepared. The fallout was immediate and bitter. Her sons, Clarence, Edward, Teddy, and Keekoff, were thrust into a public feud. Accusations flew. Loyalties broke. The media feasted on every revelation. But buried deep within those documents was something far more disturbing than family tension. In one version of the will, Aretha made reference to her eldest son Clarence's father, naming Edward Jordan, the same man who fathered her second son. But this raised a deeply unsettling timeline. Clarence was born when Aretha was only 12. Edward then would have been a fully grown man. The implication was horrifying, And yet no one, not the press, not the family, not even the court, dared speak it aloud. It was as if the truth had been too terrible to acknowledge, even decades later. For years, rumors had circulated that Aretha's first pregnancy was the result of abuse. Some said it came from within the church. Others pointed to figures close to her father. Aretha never addressed it publicly. Her silence was both shield and scar. But in those final, shaky lines of ink, she may have left behind a ghost of truth, one the public was never meant to see. And it didn't stop there. Other details in the wills painted a portrait of a woman increasingly isolated, paranoid, and distrusting. She named specific family members she did not want handling her estate. She demanded that certain assets not be sold under any circumstances. She referred to money owed, to betrayal, to disappointment, not with anger, but exhaustion. She was tired, one family friend said in an interview years later. Tired of carrying everyone, tired of pretending nothing ever happened. Media coverage, though respectful on the surface, leaned in with growing intensity. Documentaries hinted at a troubled genius. Tabloids resurrected old stories about missed concerts, broken engagements, and emotional breakdowns. But none dared say what many suspected, that Aretha Franklin had lived with unresolved trauma from the age of 12 and built an empire while silently bleeding inside. Friends recalled how she would sometimes freeze when asked about her childhood, how she avoided even casual mention of her mother, how she kept her paternity stories locked away, always off limits. The Queen of Soul, they said, was a woman of unmatched discipline, but also of deep fragility. She sang of love, freedom, and strength, but died surrounded by confusion, mistrust, and open wounds. Even the funeral, attended by presidents and pop stars, could not hide the fractures. Family members were seated strategically to avoid confrontation. Tributes clashed with gossip, and as her body lay in a golden casket, draped in elegance, the truth, the real Aretha, remained sealed in memory, in rumor, and in the shadows of a sofa cushion. This wasn't just a story about music or fame. It was about pain so deep it had to be buried with royalty. It was about silence louder than applause. It was about a woman who gave the world her voice and took her secrets to the grave. Aretha Franklin was not just the Queen of Soul. She was the architect of emotional truth in music, a woman who translated unspeakable pain into songs that healed millions. But to understand her fully, we must confront a haunting reality. The very same woman who gave the world permission to feel never gave herself that same grace. At Legends and Secrets, we believe the greatness of Aretha Franklin cannot be overstated. Her voice, majestic, ferocious, divine, altered the landscape of American music forever. She wasn't just a singer. She was a movement, a symbol, a shelter for the broken and the brave. Her songs stood at the crossroads of gospel, rhythm, and blues, and within them, she fought wars for respect, for identity, for survival. But it's impossible to separate the art from the artist when the art itself is a cry for help. Aretha's life reveals a devastating contradiction. Publicly, she stood tall, defiant, powerful, revered. Privately, she folded inwards, choosing silence over confrontation, denial over vulnerability. She built walls so high around her personal trauma that even those closest to her couldn't climb them. And when those walls finally cracked, through wills scribbled in grief, lawsuits among blood, and rumors no longer contained, the world was forced to look beyond the throne and into the ruins she left behind. Why did she never speak of what happened when she was 12? Why did she protect the identities of the men who hurt her? Why did she allow her pain to fester in silence while she saved others through song? There is no easy answer. But perhaps it lies in what Aretha herself feared most, to lose control of her narrative. Aretha understood the power of image, especially as a Black woman in a white man's industry. She knew that strength wasn't optional, it was mandatory. Vulnerability, especially the kind shaped by abuse, could shatter a career in a heartbeat. So she did what many women of her era, and still today, are forced to do. She carried it, alone. And yet, her silence was not cowardice. It was strategy, a survival tactic, a coded message. Every ooh, every belt, every whisper in her songs may have been a form of therapy. The only way she could scream without scandal. The only way she could bleed without anyone seeing. It is not our place to judge Aretha for what she did or didn't reveal. But it is our responsibility to look at the full portrait, not just the glamorous, Grammy-covered canvas, but the cracked frame that held it all together. In telling her story, unvarnished and whole, we do not diminish her legacy. We honor it. Because true legends are not those who live perfect lives. They are those who survive impossible ones. Now, we ask you, those who have danced to her rhythms, cried to her lyrics, found strength in her falsettos. What do you see when you look at Aretha Franklin today? Was she a queen betrayed by her past? A protector of her family's dignity at all costs? Or simply a woman who gave the world everything and asked for nothing in return? Whatever your answer may be, one thing is certain. The silence she kept is finally being heard. In the end, the voice that moved generations fell quiet, but the echoes never stopped. Aretha Franklin's story is not just one of musical triumph, it is a haunting ballad of survival. She gave us everything we needed: anthems for justice, melodies for heartbreak, strength for the weary. And yet, she herself bore a silence so profound, not even the fiercest gospel wail could pierce it. She was crowned in diamonds and drenched in applause, but beneath the glitter was a woman still searching for peace, still hiding from the shadows of her youth, still trying to reconcile the power of her voice with the fear that no one would truly understand her if she ever spoke her truth. She died with secrets sewn into her legacy, handwritten notes tucked between cushions, quiet resentments folded into harmony, and a past that even time couldn't erase. But now, we know. We know of the child who became a mother far too soon. We know of the diva who sometimes didn't show up because she couldn't bear to face her pain. We know of the queen who ruled the world, yet never found a safe place to rest her crown. Her music will never age. But now, with the truth unfurling behind the curtain, it gains a new layer. One that is more human, more fragile, more real. Some stories are never told. But now, you know. And as the final chord of her life fades into memory, what remains is not just a legacy of notes and lyrics, but the echo of a woman who dared to carry the world's sorrow, even when her own was too heavy to hold. She didn't just sing soul, she was soul. And now, even in silence, she speaks louder than ever.